Hey folks, I recently had Barb V speak at my stay treat, and she was phenomenal. 2.5 hours of amazing information. And today we're going to give you some of the top tips and keep it short and brief so that it's absorbable, that you can come to it, you can do it, while you're standing and doing dishes, but you can get the information into you. So I want to introduce Barb. Absolutely amazing. Imagine having the skills and tools, mindsets, and strategies today that would empower you to become a millionaire as quickly as possible or spread your message across the globe. Barb began her first business at the age of 6 and then sold that business for a profit in the 4th grade. She then started her own lawn care and snow removal business, hiring the neighborhood boys to work for her while eliminating the competition. She put herself through college and a partial athletic scholarship while running her own entertainment and delivery business. She graduated with zero debt. A successful classroom teacher and entrepreneur, Barb left classroom teaching in 1999. She built then a 6-figure income in less than 6 months. Barb lost it all in 2004 due to identity theft, and her largest client filing Chapter 11 overnight in an email. Barb knew then that she needed to own more assets than work in her business. Losing everything in 2004, she decided to turn her lemons into lemonade and learn what the world needed to know about identity theft. And she went on a mission to keep others from dealing with the pains and heartache that she faced over the years, working her way out of the chaos. Barb is here today to share with you how she sold more than 5,000 books of her international best-selling book and how she teaches today to help kids, families, and adults how to generate digital vending products that they
I'm
own,
so
which
excited to
produce
have Barb
passive
V
residual
speak this
income for
weekend.
her.
Stay tuned and
Please
watch this
welcome
video
Barb V
clip for
and
a
take it
teaser
away.
to see what Barb V is
Oh,
all
Rusty,
about.
thank you so much. And thank you for having me here. Thanks for having me back. I am so excited to really pour into your community. Uh, I don't know where to start, my
Well,
first business.
yeah, start with collaboration because you know what? I often tell authors that they need to find a twin author, somebody else to ride the waves with. And you were talking a bit about that.
Okay. So, my first business, it was a location business. And then in the 4th grade, I sold that business because I sold a book. When I started my business at 6 years old, I literally kept one of these little black and white notebooks that we did in grade school. I kept diligent notes about my business in that notebook. And it was a location notebook across the street from a college campus where I had the soccer field, I had the softball fields, and I had the baseball diamonds. And they were right across the street from my house. About a half a mile or so beyond that was the football stadium. And up the hill from that, where I lived, was the basketball arena and the big gymnasium where they had concerts and everything else for the community in that arena. Now, what I realized as a kid, I realized that the soccer, softball, and baseball fields did not have a concession stand. I noticed that the football stadium had two, one on each side. The basketball arena where the wrestlers, the gymnasts, and all the concerts and stuff happened, they had 4 concession stands. And I knew that those 3 sports across the street from my house didn't have a concession stand at all. So I started my own concession stand, but I did it a little bit differently because instead of doing it at my house and having everybody come to me, I did what I saw on TV and at the baseball fields and basketball um, games and stuff like that. I got one of those old fashioned wooden pop bottle crates. It had 24 slots in it for individual bottles. Well, I started making homemade lemonade and homemade popcorn. When I first started, I wasn't tall enough to reach the top of the stove to make the popcorn. We first started with Jiffy Pop, the Jiffy Pop popcorn where it bundled up, and I realized it wasn't cost effective for me. And then I moved from that to making kernels in a pot and put oil in it and all that. Well, I perfected my recipe. And then I perfected the recipe not only for standard popcorn, but I perfected the recipe for kettle corn with the sugar and the caramel and that things like that. So I started making that the night before, made the ice cold lemonade, but I had gotten the um schedule for all those sports. So I knew when the home games were, and in my little journal book, I kept what competition, what university were they going to play against that had the biggest crowds. I knew what temperature to stop making ice cold lemonade, but to then make hot chocolate. I watched my mom make the hot chocolate, and one time she wasn't available. She was taking care of my little brother and sister or something, and I had to make the hot chocolate on my own. Well, I went in, I grabbed all the spices and I did everything, and I grabbed the sea spice that I thought she had done, sprinkled it into the hot chocolate and did everything else. And we sold out faster of my hot chocolate than we did my mom's hot chocolate. And everybody, all the college students was like, Barb, this is phenomenal. This is awesome. What'd you do? I went back home to make the next batch. And I told my mom, they loved it. They sold out faster and they were telling me they loved the new recipe. And she looks at me and says, what new recipe? I said, I don't know. I just followed what I thought you did. Well, come to find out, instead of me pulling out the cinnamon, I pulled out the cayenne pepper. So they had cayenne pepper in their hot chocolate and they loved it. So, of course, I took all of these notes and I put it in my journal book. I knew how much I sold. I knew how much I paid my little brother and sister and the two neighbor kids who worked for me. So then in the fourth grade, we moved to the other side of town. Well, the amazing thing was I knew I was going to lose my business because it was a true location business.
Mhm.
But I was a great salesperson and an amazing entrepreneur at the time, and I didn't even know it because I had something that was extremely valuable.
Let me guess, let me guess. You sold your business plan. That book is your business plan, and you
I
sold
sold that book with my notes, with my recipes, everything. I sold that to the two neighbor kids that also worked for me.
it. Wow.
And that was and when I realized it, that was my first book I ever sold. I would pay tens of thousands of dollars to have that book back today. But here's the cool part, and I don't think I shared this with you yet. I am recreating that book along with the checklist for families and young entrepreneurs to go and do the same type of business. Along with any business they want, I will share how I made thousands of dollars with my little lemonade stand, but you can make tens of thousands of dollars with yours. And so that was the first book that I did. That wasn't quite a collaboration, but what I did do the next place I moved, went to the other side of town. And on that side of town, I actually started a snow removal business, a lawn care business, a garden weeding business. And to eliminate or collaborate, I eliminated the competition, but most people would see it as collaboration. I
Mhm.
collaborated with all the boys in the area.
Of course you did.
I
And
went,
this is excellent because this is talking about a how-to book. Like you basically talk, and so that's one of the most common books out there right now, and very sellable for people to go and scale their business because all authors will probably have a sideline, a side gig. So how do they scale their business? So this is great advice for them how to scale their business and then to keep track of what they're doing in their business so that they can sell that or they can teach other people do that. Let's talk about some of the things that you gave to some of my writers in the weekend about fiction and poetry, and specifically my memoir, because that's really cool.
okay, so tell us a little bit more about, I know the fiction, the poetry, and a memoir book. Who's your target audience?
My target audience is a women. And when you had us do this exercise in the weekend, I actually put some things down on the list that I hadn't even thought of before. So I'm going to approach women's studies departments at universities because my book is Love Letters to Women Everywhere, 7 Cautionary Tales. And what it's about is about my 7 attempts at monogamy, doing serial monogamy up big, and what I learned about myself in each relationship. And of course, I was the common denominator, but I am a women's studies creative writing double major. And I think that might be one of the avatars that I had never thought of before, thanks to you.
That's wonderful. So thinking about what you do, my first question, and this leads to how I sold more than 5,000 copies of my first book, not my one I just shared with as a kid, but my first adult book that I really sold, and how I did that without putting the first word on the page. So number 1, I had to know what the book was about. So you know what your book is about,
Mhm.
okay? Number 2, why are you writing this book?
Okay, well, I am writing it so that young women can possibly see how I gave up myself in a different way for each relationship and how part of me blossomed in each different relationship. And how can we, as women, hang on to every part of ourselves, regardless what relationship we're in? And I just was at a hair salon yesterday, and one of my other authors actually gets lots of comments and things and feedback from her book when she goes to the hair salon. I didn't really think about that at all, but yesterday when I was telling this one young hairstylist who's sitting beside us, working on me, beside her best friend working on my sister, and I let my hairstylist read one of the chapters of my book. And she wasn't done when I came back from the washroom, and my sister's hair is big, thick hair, takes longer to do. And she's nodding while she's reading it. And she's going, I would definitely read this book. And she hadn't finished yet. And then she said, and my friend would read this book. Bryn would read this book too. So now I'm thinking, why don't I do book launches at hair salons and they have a loudspeaker? Well, they can all be entertained and have a break from the music that's canned in. So I just got another idea thanks to you.
And
It's young
think
women.
about that.
I want to reach the young
That's
women.
and that's a collaboration. So your big question is, who's your audience? Why are you writing the book? Because one of the first things, if you're not married, monogamously married to the why, it's not going to be a book that's coming from the heart and really creating that passion. And so why do you write? Why are you writing? Why are you writing this book? Who's your audience? When you know who that is, where do those individuals hang out?
Yeah, well,
Where do
it was
you find?
mostly women there,
Yep,
and what a
yep,
great place to go hang out and do that. Because then one of the teachers, because we go to a school for hairdressing, one of the
right.
teachers that came over to check said, "Oh, I need to read that book," and she had just heard my title.
That's amazing. Now, let's think one step bigger.
Okay,
Okay. Now, you just said the hairdressers are going to buy your book.
yeah, they said they
And
would.
then you said the hairdressers are at a hairdressing school.
Yes.
So, what if you went to the hairdressing school and sold and premiered your book at the hairdressing school, telling all of those hairdressing students
Hmm.
and all of their teachers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do all of those teachers have their own studios or spas outside of the school? Some of them do, some of them don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
But do you have to be licensed to be a hairdresser?
Don't know that. I believe they do. I mean, they are dealing with sharp implements.
Absolutely. And I know for a lot of the where places where I've lived or where I've had my hair done, they have to have their certificate on display or their business license on display right there by their mirror. So if you think about that, you have the hairdresser, you have the hairdresser teachers, you have the hairdressing school.
Yeah.
So let's take another step beyond that, bigger. We're backing out. We've got the direct one-on-one, the belly to belly marketing, but now we're stepping back. Now we're back 4 degrees, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Now that fourth degree, that school I know has to be certified in the state that you live in.
Right.
Okay. So that school belongs to an association.
Okay.
If they belong to an association, how many other schools, just in your state, how many other schools belong to that association in your state of hairdressing schools that have hairdressing teachers, that have hairdressing students, that have hairdressing clients?
Yes, exactly. Oh
Do
my
you see
goodness.
my stair steps?
Yeah, blow my mind. Blow my mind.
Okay, let's do it again. Let's do it again. What state do you live in? Or you live in
Alberta, Canada.
Alberta?
Yeah.
Alberta, Canada. Now, is there a national
Yeah.
association for hairdressing schools in Canada?
I will go look at about that for
Is
sure.
there is there a national hairdressing schools association here in the United States?
Hmm.
Is your book international? Can it be international? Of course.
Yeah,
There's women in both countries.
of course
There's
there
young
are.
women in both countries.
Hmm.
Okay.
You know what I could do
There's
is I could partner with them and I could say a certain percentage of the sales in your school salons, in your, can be a scholarship for a worthy student. So
absolutely.
yeah, there's my mind is blown with possibilities now.
Okay,
Um,
so we just now created that national. Now
mhm,
let's create the international association for hairdressers or hairdressing schools. Okay.
yeah,
So that was the step, the stair steps that I took. I knew exactly why I was writing my book because I did not want to deal with identity theft ever again.
mhm,
Okay.
no,
And I didn't want anybody else to go through that pain, that chaos, that heartache, the headaches, the financial stress and distress that it put my life into and the life of my family and loved ones.
yeah,
So I decided to go and find out who my target audience was. My why was so you don't have to go through what I went through.
exactly. And that's my
And
why
then
too.
I
Yeah.
I found out who, not the hairdresser, but who deals with people like myself who could or would be victims to identity theft. I
Mhm,
went to them, and then I went to their organization, and I went to their national and then their international organization. And I asked them our next step, what I asked what is a why? What's how do I phrase it? A ask campaign. Okay? So I create an ask campaign. I picked 3 questions. Basic general questions about my topic. And I went to all these people that I was working with and I asked them the 3 questions about identity theft. The first question was, what do you know about identity theft? Or what do you wish you knew about identity theft? Okay. So that's one question together. What do you know and what do you wish you know? And then I asked the question, if you could talk to an identity thief, what would you ask them? And I asked that question specifically because I had connections to former identity thieves. So I
hmm,
went and I talked to them and I asked my audience that did the ask campaign, I did those questions in there. I asked my identity thieves that I had connections to. And that eventually led me to today well over 350 different identity thieves that I've spoken with or identity
made it.
theft
Yeah.
connections.
And you know what I
Okay.
can do is I can go and ask, what do you know about relationships? And after a failed relationship, what do you wish you'd known? Because this one young hairstylist, we got started talking about narcissists because she'd been in a relationship with narcissists. Well, so have I. What did I do to invite that into my life? But asking them the questions is a phenomenal. There can be a question answer section in the back of my book, increasing audience spectrum appeal. So this is
Well,
cool.
not only because your book is a memoir, yes. My book was not a memoir.
No,
My book was interactive.
and
Here's
how
this,
to.
here's that. My book is more, what do you know about identity theft? What do you wish you knew? I
Mm,
went and I answered all those questions that they wish they'd known about identity theft.
yeah.
I went and I asked all the identity thieves, I asked them the questions that all these people want to know. And the biggest question is, why'd you do it?
Oh, yeah.
The biggest, easiest, simplest answer was it was easy.
Yeah. Easy. Mm-hmm.
Okay. But here's the key. When I marketed my book, I created the book with the cover or a templated cover, and then I bound it. Okay. And I bound my book, and it looked kind of something like this since we're on YouTube. Looks like this. And it had the cover on it, had the back cover, had the jacket. But I said, this is what most people know about identity theft. And it was an empty blank book.
Yeah.
And all of the people that would deal and potentially deal bank managers, bankers, insurance agents, all the people who would deal with identity theft. I said, this is what most people know about identity theft. And then I had my one sheet that shared, here's what I know about identity theft, and this is my book. Would you like to purchase a copy? Yes, I want a case of them for all my agents. Yes, I want a case of them for all my bankers. I want a
Mm-hmm.
case of them for all my clients. Okay. That's how I sold over 5,000 copies before I wrote the first word on the page.
Mm-hmm.
I sold literally, I sold the blank book, the concept, and I on my one sheet, it's okay. I've spoken with 100 identity thieves.
Yeah.
I have spoken with hundreds of victims or thousands of victims and hundreds of privacy, safety, and security officials. And I put their questions in the book and then I answered them,
Mm.
thus turning my book into the first international best-selling book on identity theft
Absolutely
and being able to
fascinating.
sell over 5,000 copies before. Now, we talked a little bit about a poetry
Yes,
writer.
Mira's poetry book where she is a survivor of cult, and you brainstormed some ideas there about where she could go and collaborate and partner and find her audience.
And so something like a author about poetry, or even who's the other author, the memoirs, yours, and then there's another category that we spoke about.
The children on the spectrum.
Okay, and children on the autistic spectrum. So on all of those books, who is your target audience?
Mhm.
But who is your target audience reader? And where do they hang out? But then the next question is, what do they do for fun?
Right.
Who do they know? Okay. Somebody surviving a cult or somebody breaking away from a cult or somebody dealing with an abusive relationship. Who deals with those people?
The counselors. Yes.
Counselors,
Ministers.
therapists,
Therapists. Yeah.
ministers. So why not take your book? And now your book is just, and what I say to most people is your book is just an expensive business card.
Yeah. I say
It
it's a
really
business
is.
card on steroids.
Yep, there you go. So it is a more expensive business card that you now take, but how many people, and I don't know, you might know this, I don't off the top of my head, how many people want to write a book?
There's and I recently did the stats and there's about 97% and then 80% might write down a word or a couple of ideas and 60% might, go a little bit further than that. Only about it's a disgustingly low percentage of people that actually go ahead and write their book.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But everybody wants to. But
Hmm.
now with you as the person who's done it, been there, done that, I got the book,
Hmm.
with that person, what does it do to them as a speaker?
Oh, it puts
What
them
does
on
it do
stages.
for
Yeah.
them as an author, a speaker, and a business person? Your book, you're not just a writer,
No.
you're an author.
Mm.
You've written a book, but you are also now an expert
Hmm.
because you've got the badge, you've got the book,
Yeah.
you've been there, done that.
Hmm.
But now you go to a library and tell the library, your local library, I'm going to donate 10, 20 books, depending on how big your community is and how many library branches they have. I'm going to donate 20 books to your library, but I also want to come in and do an author's reading.
Hmm.
Really? You do that? What
Hmm.
does that do for your book sales and your marketing? It elevates you as a business author professional
Right.
and
And
an
then have
expert
somebody
in
video
your
you
field.
so that you have a sizzle reel to offer other places
Yep.
about your book. Yeah.
And then here's the cool part. Depending on how you publish your book, if you do it the correct way, you can now go to Barnes and Nobles, small independent bookstores, and you can then go do book readings at those locations as well.
Hmm.
Barnes and Noble, I know for a fact because they do it for me. Every book that I author now, or my young entrepreneurs author, even my 8-year-old who has a book out, he's able to sell the books to Amazon and he's able to sell it to Barnes and Noble. But in his community, he's gone to Barnes and Noble and said, "Hey, I'm a local author." "Oh, no, you're not." "Yeah, here's my book." And on the back of the book or in the inside cover jacket is his picture and his bio as an 8-year-old author.
Hmm.
The adults are like, "Oh my gosh, I work for a bookstore, I work for a library, and I want to write a book. How did you, as an 8-year-old, write a book?" But now it gives him credibility.
Yeah.
Every author with a book in hand, it gives you that credibility, that expertise. But like you said, 97% of the population might want to write a book. Maybe 1 or 2%, 3% actually do. So
Yeah.
that elevates you, thus making you and giving you that celebrity status,
Hmm.
that expertise. And that's how the marketing about your book continues to go and grow. Now, I'm not talking books that are not well written. We are talking about books that are well written,
Yeah.
and we're talking about books that have a specific niche audience. When you pick your niche, you're going to find that niche, you're going to reach down deep into that niche. And that's where you generate all the book sales, all the speaking engagement endorsements, all of go to a college, a university. Can you partner with a college professor in psychology that it might be teaching about cults to make your book on their mandated university reading list for this semester or this
Yeah.
class?
It could be. Exactly. This
Or a
is amazing.
English poetry teacher, you put your book on poetry in there and say, "I'm happy, it's a local university. I'm happy to come in and speak to your class on poetry for you and how to do this." You're
Hmm.
elevating who you are, but you're also creating more sales and you're encouraging the next generation of writers.
Absolutely. This was amazing, Barb V. You've given so much value, and I look forward to sharing this with my audience and putting it out there because you are just so, so energized and vibrant and so generous with your information and sharing. I thank you so very much. Everyone, jazz hands, even wherever you are, and Barb can't see them. I'm sure you're going to love this. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
Rusty, thank you for letting me be a part of your life and serving your audience because, that's one of the greatest thrills in my life is to be able to teach, serve, and really change and impact other people's lives. I do a lot with what I do with my young people, the Kid Factor podcast, and the things that I do with the kids, as well as the things that I do with the adults. And I encourage your audience to look me up all
Mhm.
on social media, all the places. I think you're going to put them in the show
I will.
notes for today's YouTube channel.
I
Um,
certainly will. That I will do for sure.
so
So as I say when I
I
sign off, everyone, bye for now. Go right.